Got a question here. I'm a third-year finance major who's been consistently scoring around 165 on my LSAT practice tests. My goal is to hit at least a 170 on the April LSAT in approximately 3 months. I've tried various study methods from online courses to self-study books, but I feel I'm plateauing. What specific strategies, study habits, or resources are essential to make that 5-point jump? Are there particular areas in logical reasoning or reading comprehension that I should focus on more intensively? Well, first off, congrats on reaching the 165 mark. Hitting a 170 is certainly doable in the next 3 months or less between now and the April LSAT. One thing I'll say to start off, though, is that you actually want to improve by more than 5 points to be safely at the 170 mark. A lot of folks will experience a test day drop, and it never hurts to have a few points of buffer space just in case. So I'd want your PT average to be something like 173, 174, so that on your worst day ever, if you woke up sick that day, you'd still safely hit the 170 mark. You mentioned LR and reading comp, but you didn't mention games. So I'm curious, where are you currently at on games right now? Hopefully you're at perfection, maybe -1. Games is of course the most learnable and perfectible section. And if you want to be at 170, typically the students who are at or above the 170 mark are scoring perfect on games, maybe -1, then they're losing roughly, 3 points on each of the other sections. You tried a bunch of different resources, books, courses. I'm curious, were those online courses on-demand videos, or do they include any live support? When you want to level up your score, that often requires leveling up your prep as well. So if you've only used books and videos, it'd be well worth trying some live classes, maybe in a small group setting to ensure that personalized attention, or maybe you want to shell out for some one-on-one coaching as well to help you reach that next level. Because at this point, typically when you're already in the 160s, high 160s especially or beyond, a lot of what you're going to get in videos you've already seen before. What you're going to see in the books is oftentimes foundational, covering the basics. So if we're talking about one of those prep books that's like a phone book, like 500 plus pages, a lot of that material you're already past, because the reason you're getting questions wrong at this point when you're at the 165 mark is not because you have some fundamental misconception regarding a certain question type or approach. You're getting questions wrong just because they're hard. So you're not going to see necessarily a trend in, oh, I'm really struggling with strengthening questions, or grouping games really give me trouble. At this point, you're just getting them wrong because they're hard questions. They're level 4, they're level 5 questions. They're difficult methods of reasoning, or they're unusual questions in some way. And so it may become a little bit tougher at this level to see the patterns in what you're getting wrong, because there is no obvious pattern. You're only coming across methods of reasoning that show up once every 5-10 exams. So it's going to be a point of diminishing marginal returns where you're going to have to put in more work to get the additional few points of increase. Another way to say that would be that, for example, it's easier to go from a 145 to a 150 than it is to go from a 165 to a 170. And in your case, you really want to be at, I would say, 175 probably, to safely score 170 on your worst day. So you mentioned, again, to back to your question, particular areas in logical reasoning or reading comp you should focus on. So particular areas in logical reasoning, I would say less common question types, because that's probably what you're getting wrong more often because it shows up more rarely. So I would think about evaluate the argument questions, tough parallel reasoning questions, cannot be true, for example. Maybe there is some trend in difficult questions you're getting wrong. Maybe it's tough necessary assumption or tough flaw. I'd make sure you're really airtight on those, because necessary assumption and flaw are the most common types. So any improvements you make in your understanding of those types will likely pay dividends since they show up more frequently. And then I'm saying to shore up your gaps that you have, if any, in evaluate the argument and parallel, because they are less common types, but you want to make sure you're going to nail them even if they do show up. Then make sure you're really good on method of reasoning questions and any unique methods of reasoning or topics that show up a little bit less often, but you dread seeing them. So for example, what are the areas in logical reasoning that you are most likely to flag and skip, that you just dread coming across, but hey, it's going to show up every single exam? So I'm thinking, hard science topics in logical reasoning, maybe philosophy questions and morality, aestheticism, things that are overly technical in nature. If you don't like those, maybe you want to drill those kinds of logical reasoning stimuli since they show up pretty consistently, but they're going to be more time consuming and tougher to deal with. For reading comprehension, same deal. Are there certain topics you just don't like? Is it hard science? Whatever it is, drill those. There are nearly 400 released reading comp passages that you can practice on. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please do me a favor and share this video with someone who needs to see it. I don't do any advertising for these videos. I rely only on word of mouth to help get the word out, and your spreading the word really does make a difference. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.